Hello, hello, and welcome to the Wonder Series. Yep, it's Wednesday again, and you guys know that means it is Wonder Series Wednesday. And of course, I always forget to turn off my phone. So, anyway, welcome, everyone. So, at Living Healthy List, which is the sponsor for the Wonder Series, our goal is to excite and to engage, to educate, and empower you to make the changes that you need to make in order to live the life that you love and absolutely flourish. And what we do here on the Wonder Series, this is one of those resources. This is just one of those things that you can do every week to get some great information, get some amazing tips and insight. Because truly, what would life look like if you looked at it from a different perspective? If you opened your mind to the possibilities and the opportunities that are out there waiting for you? Who would you be? What would you do? What would you create? And ultimately, how would that allow you to live that healthy, happy, fulfilling, and purpose filled life that you have always dreamed of? So today I'm really excited to talk to my friend Trish Campbell. Trish is an author. She is an author of a new book that just came out. Very excited to talk to her about that. She is a healing and transformational coach, a Reiki master who has made a shift from 20 years in the corporate world to living a very different and purpose-filled life. So Trish, hi, how are you, my friend?
Hi, Denise. Thanks so much for having me. I'm doing well. Cold here in Toronto, but doing well.
Yeah, we're just a little further south.
Yeah.
It's pretty cold here too.
Yeah. So thanks for having me here.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm excited. In at Living Healthy List, we have been talking in January about resilience and specifically resilient mindset. And as I was reading through, parts of the book last night, when it comes to the word resilience, like if there was an image that I could create, the image is a photo of you because through your stories and your journey, um, you had to have lived resilience. You have to have found some resilience. So I'm really excited to connect that later on in our conversation. So
Mm-hmm.
tell us a little bit about you, what you do. I know you have obviously your healing journey. That you have experienced and truly like culminated into this beautiful book. And I do want to actually take a moment and I really like to read the back of the book because it really tells
Mm.
such a true tale, such a heartwarming, heart-wrenching also at times a tale. So Love Me, again, is the name of the book. Love Me, Awaken to Self-Healing, Self-Love, and Liberation is a raw and textured tapestry of poetry stitched with deeply vulnerable stories and insights, taking us on a journey through the various dynamics and treasures revealed in one's inevitable unraveling in a quest for self-love. From the dark and vulnerable to the sensuous and soul-bearing, Love Me is a courageous testament to the power of vulnerability in our human evolution, inviting us all into our own depths of personal self exploration and discovery to find our truth.
Mm.
Amazing. And the poetry, Trish, you're an author, but you're also an incredible poet. Um, some of these poems were tough to read because they, like I said before, they were so soul bearing and they were just heart wrenching. And I'm excited as going through the book that I'm experiencing your journey. Your
Mm.
words, in the chapters are one thing, but I truly feel it as I'm reading through the poems. So let's get back to who Trish is. What got you to where you are today?
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for reading the back of it because that really tells what this is all about and invites the reader in to the journey. Like you said, I love that you said you could really feel it when you were reading it, and that is what how I intentionally crafted that. I feel like it's a work of art how I combine the poetry and then the insights that give that context and how this began was and why I'm sharing my story is it really started at the end of a relationship. I was in deep grief. I could have looked at the other person to blame and be a victim to that, but I really I started to notice a pattern in my life and really wanted to understand where that was rooted. And noticing that I had been um, shaping myself to show up in relationship, whether that was in romantic relationship, work, family, um, to other people's expectations of who I should be. And so I was like, where did this come from? Like, how did I get here? And really took a deep look at, and it took some courage to go back and connect the dots to my childhood. And I think many people will relate when I tell that in the book about how I did that, because we all have our own experiences of kind of coming into how we show up in the world. But and I believe we come here knowing what our soul's mission is and the contract that we sign to come in, and then we forget, and then through all the external influences we are told how who we are. We are told stories of who we are. We're shown how we're accepted, and it might not be the way we naturally show up. So then for me, I realized the way I was naturally showing up, I didn't feel accepted. And so I started to shape myself to the ways where I did feel accepted. And that just evolves like from early upbringing to into high school, into the workplace. And then I'm like, who am I? Who am I anymore? I'm so detached from who I am at my soul.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really connecting all of the dots. That's one of the chapters, connecting the dots of what these core wounds that really, we all have those. And if we don't, why I'm sharing my story is not to blame or to be again like a victim or any of that. It's to express that we all have our own unique experiences, and we all don't have to carry that. It doesn't have to be our identity our entire life. And it is what is blocking us from living a life of purpose. It's blocking us from all that possibility that's out there that you talked about. So
It's so true. And there's something that you said, other people telling us, who we are when that starts when we're very young, but also people telling us who we are not.
exactly.
For me, that's the piece that resonates with me. Not necessarily people telling me, you have to be this or you have to be that. There was more, you're not this or you're
Mm-hmm.
not that. Um, that's something that resonates with me very deeply. And to be honest, I never thought of it as a wound or a trauma. I just thought of it as, it was an experience, something that
Mm-hmm.
just happened. But now looking back at age 50 to when I was younger and I was told what I was not, I see that path, like, and the decisions I made because of that. So that I think is the important part. It's like, people are saying things to you and telling you what you are, and you're trying to meet their expectations. Um, but ultimately, you or me or the person, we make our own choices,
Right.
but we don't understand that when we're younger.
Exactly. And we look to, especially when we're younger, because we don't understand that we have that inner power. And that's something, it's so interesting. We're not taught that. We're not taught that we have that power within. We're conditioned, and I talk about this in the book, that we're conditioned to look externally for everything, for our strength, for our resilience, for our acceptance, for approval. Am I doing it right? Am I doing this human thing right? Like, that's how I was like showing up. I was like, okay, I always wanted to be a teacher, but then when I got to university and then my life was a certain way, I was like, oh, well, it's just easier to go into business because that's more successful and that'll, get me somewhere, not really realize. And that was like what society deemed as, oh, well, that's the more lucrative path, or those negative things of
Yep. The real job.
the real job. And like, oh, you can't make enough money, and it's all those things that you said, that what we aren't, what we can't do, that is the negative reel that replays in our mind. And so it's always there until it's not, until we have the awareness. So for me, it took how many years to start to say, wait a minute, there's more to life than just going through the motions for everybody else's benefit.
Mhm.
And so I think a lot of us, yeah, we don't recognize what we've gone through in our childhood as necessarily a wound and or trauma, but all of those little experiences add up because we store, and that's what through my Reiki work, like we store those in the body. And I know you're familiar with Reiki as well. So we store that in the body and we don't realize we're carrying that. And that also becomes an energetic barrier to who we really are,
Mhm.
and continues the our path in that, continues that on for us if we're not consciously kind of unraveling that and healing that. So
I want to just quickly touch on the energy piece. I was
mhm,
talking to somebody a couple of weeks ago about the energy and how, the energy is all around us, and we don't think of ourselves when it comes to, this, like you just mentioned, this stored energy, this negative energy. If you would just talk about that just for a
mhm.
minute, to help us understand, how these wounds experiences can sit with us in a negative way
Mhm.
energetically.
Well, first of all, we are energy. It's not just all around us, it's in us and through us, and everything is energy. And so, but we don't, again, we're not taught real, I mean, we're taught this, but at a from a different perspective. So, and that how we can really, we're not really told that we can even control that. We're just like, we're influenced by it rather than being the influencer of it. But what ends up happening is when we have a negative experience, we are, again, through our conditioning, taught to suppress it. And
Mhm.
so where do we suppress it? We think we can walk around, oh, I'm okay, I can keep going, I don't have to deal with this emotion right now, I'll deal with it later. And then we keep doing that, and our body holds that energy, it remembers, it's cellular, it's not something that's just like non-existent, it
Mhm.
exists. So I really feel like, and tying this in with the work that you do around health and wellness, it's really important to look at energy from a different way, that it's stored in our bodies, because a lot of that stored emotion that we're carrying around is actually making us sick
Mhm.
if we're not dealing with it. So if we're not releasing it and healing it, so that is a big piece around the energy of our experiences. And I think we don't realize that.
Yeah. Thank you for
Yeah.
clarifying that, because I think that is a really important piece, that we think people get sick because whatever the reason they think, oh, my
Hmm.
immune system's not great, I haven't been sleeping, I've been working too hard, and all that contributes. But I think the piece that most of us don't understand, and are really just starting to understand, myself, is really where this negative energy can sit, and how this these old wounds and these
Hmm.
things that you haven't dealt with. I mean, I think of a situation that I had 25 years ago.
Hmm.
Um, I still think about it every now and then. So have I completely dealt with it? Probably not. If it still pops up, and I think because I address it, I'm not ignoring it. That maybe I'm dealing with it in a healthy way.
Hmm.
Um, but I think for most people, they just kind of go, "Oh yeah, that happened. It's done." When it's not. And
Yeah.
those kind of things can really cause real deep illness. Uh,
Hmm.
and truly, like, and those are the things that, these type of things can cause, different cancers and all of those
Hmm.
things that we wouldn't imagine that negative energy could contribute to.
Yeah, you're so right. I just want to touch on that a little bit deeper. That it's viewed as a strength in our society, or in our environment, to our culture, I should say, to be okay with whatever it is, and to convince ourselves we're okay. We don't need to feel that, but the real strength is actually feeling it, and feeling that emotion, um, and then we're able to release it, because to your point, we're still remembering those wounds, But really, when we're having negative experience in our life right now, currently, a lot of the times the pain isn't really what the current situation is about, whatever the dynamic is. Like if we're in relationship and we're having a conflict and we're in deep pain, it's about the past. It's about what something we dealt with in our earlier years that we've carried with us. And every time we feel this sense of pain, it's not really the pain of the current moment, it's the pain of what we haven't healed and layers of that we're operating from. So it's like, that's why I feel like it's so important to share what I've shared in my book and to share that message of healing, and that we don't have to be operating from our wounds, because our relationship, that's why the message of self-love, like people say, that's the, love yourself first, it's the greatest love. It truly is, because when we're strong, when we have that inner strength, when we nourish that inner home, then all of our other relationships benefit from that. So
wow, it's so true. It's funny, you said something a second ago about the pain, and how the pain we're experiencing today is pain from some other time, which just makes me think, so if I'm struggling with some kind of pain today, or feeling some kind of pain, or whatever the situation, I may not be dealing with this for another 5 years. So I see where, this level of pain just kind of grows and grows and grows. And until we address it, how? With self-love and introspection. So tell us how your journey really, how was your journey? Did you had a breakup that was devastating? And you just wake up one day and go, I got to fix this?
Well, like I said, I wanted to find out why I was showing up this way, and I wanted to, and it's not about fixing or that there was anything wrong with me. And I think that's a lot of what, the feelings that come in when something like this happens, like, what have I done, or what's wrong with me? But it's not really about that. It's about, there's lessons there. It's about our human experience, and we're on this, the path of learning things, maybe not the way we thought we would learn them, or choosing to learn, but they're offered to us in that time. And so for me, it was a moment of, I really want to make the most of this journey here in this lifetime, and to really live authentically, and to not be afraid to be who I am, not worry about what everyone else thinks about my life. And because for so many years that was how I was living, and I think that a lot of people can relate to that, in their own way. So it took being vulnerable, but it also was not like a one and done. There's no easy button for healing, and we're never really done with it. So that kind of ties in with, the resilience that you're talking about as being your theme, because it really takes being resilient and going deep, going into those emotions and feeling them, and going back to childhood, and working with the inner child, doing a lot of inner child healing, giving myself the love that I really needed as a child, but I didn't feel as a child. And I think that takes courage, it takes resilience to keep coming back, because we think we're done, but we're not. We're never, as this whole writing the book, the poetry was where it began, with processing, using that to express my feelings. And then came the insights to give it context, but then putting it all together, and then editing it, and then with each edit there was a layer of healing. And then I thought, I'm done, the book is out, it's released, I've birthed this baby. And then there's a healing there, just like there is when you give birth. It's like the cells in my body are changed now. Like, it's really a different feeling, but it's also a new perspective to come again and have that resilience to move forward, to keep at it, because it isn't always easy. It isn't always easy, but it's always worth it.
I like that. It's not always easy, but it's always worth it.
Yeah.
So what does one do? you and I are kind of in the world, so we use phrases like, working with your inner child,
Mm-hmm.
and our vulnerability. But what does that look like for somebody who's listening and say, okay, that's great, but Trish, I don't know where to start.
Yeah. Um, I mean, really, it's about the first place to start is, for me, I mean, if you have somebody that you know that can help you through it, to offer, like you and I, the work that we do. But I kind of took myself through this journey and was like, what it was about being open to discovering new things, like really learning who I was again, really letting go of the identity that I had become for other people, and really seeing what was fun for me, what was enjoyable for me, dating myself and allowing myself that space. So connecting with nature was one of the most transformative experiences, like over and over again. I was just like, this is so healing, just to be out in nature. As soon as my feet hit the ground, I felt connected. I felt me again. So
Mhm.
it's and then I came into, I started with processing my expression or my emotions through writing, but then I went back to art, because I used to paint back in my early 20s. And then, yeah, I did the artwork for that, for the book cover. And so that also was a healing journey in and of itself, to express myself that way. So that is something that I am giving a lot of energy to now. All the tools, like whether it's the Reiki, the writing, the artwork, if cooking, cooking is another way
That's
to,
me.
meditation. It's meditative. It's whatever brings you back to you, whatever brings you home to yourself. And to, one of the things that I had realized um, in that ending of the relationship was that I had built my home outside of myself.
Mm.
And so it was really about building the home inside, so that no matter where I am, whether it's the grocery store, on the freeway, or out in nature, my home is always here. And I always have that to pause and to feel loved, and to know that I'm okay, and to feel safety. Because I think that's ultimately one of the things we all want to feel is safe.
Absolutely, to feel love, and I
Mhm.
think to feel love, you have to feel love for self first.
Yeah,
Because as much as we can give, if we're not giving here, this is almost not fake, but it's not as much as it could be.
hmm, it
With
is. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a word that you used in the book, pretty early on in one of the first chapters, and this is funny that you and I were talking about this a second ago. You use the word empower,
Hmm.
and when we think, we use the word empower so often nowadays. I feel empowered to do that. I'm empowered. I have my superwoman stance. But let's look at the word empower in relation to resilience and your healing,
Yeah.
and your healing and our healing. Why empower? Why did that word come to you?
I think that word came to me because it was in understanding who I am and remembering who I am, and understanding how I got to where I was, that I had given my power away. And so it was that journey back to myself that made me feel that inner power. And I think that's where the empowered comes from. It's that inner strength. And
Mm-hmm.
that's ultimately self love. That's ultimately our connection with our soul.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I think of when I think empowered. It's coming from within and not driven externally.
Mm-hmm. I love it. That was just one of those words I kind of circled a couple of times. Tell me, in writing the book, were there lessons that you learned? Because obviously already had experiences and you were in this journey. Did writing the book change things for you?
Yeah, I mean, I realized that I didn't have to be so limited. I felt like that I came to understand how limiting we are in our, well, the beliefs that we have based on the external influences we have growing up, and we engineer our lives in smallness. I go back to learning that from Brene Brown in her book, Daring Greatly, I think was the one. It's like we're not thinking big enough for ourselves, and we think everything has to look a certain way. So even I was just having this conversation with someone else about wanting to be a teacher at some point, and then I just mentioned that earlier here too,
Mm-hmm.
and then letting that go. But ultimately, like, it doesn't have to look this, so things don't have to look the same the way we think they have to look. So
Yep.
I've kind of made this journey, and I was in the corporate world, and now I've kind of stepped out of that. Not kind of, I have stepped out of that, and now I am teaching in sort of a way, because it's just not the way that it looks for everybody else, because I'm sharing my story of healing. I'm sharing those insights. I'm helping or other people heal. And so that's, a teacher too. So I think one of the biggest lessons is we don't always know what it looks like, what it is that we want, what our soul desires for us, but just to be open to the possibilities and to always listen to that inner nudge, because our soul knows what our journey is. And sometimes we get in the way with all this ego stuff and our socialization and all of that.
Oh, absolutely. And I have a similar story when it comes to, I always wanted to be a writer. That was
Mm,
something that I dreamed of when I was in high school. And then when I went away to college, I had an advisor who did not know me basically say, oh, well, it's really hard to get into the communication school. Maybe you should think of something else. And I was devastated by that, and I'm
mhm.
sure that person didn't say it to be mean. She probably said it to give me another option. It wasn't presented that way. And so for so many years, I thought, oh, I'm not good enough to be a writer.
Mhm.
And well, I am a writer. I write for, I have a website that has I write a blog post. I write beautiful emails. I've written for other people. Guess what? I'm a writer. Maybe I'm
Mhm.
not writing, huge novels, or I'm not writing for a newspaper, but I'm writing in a way that actually makes sense to me, that feeds me and my inner soul, my person. So I
Right.
completely understand, that it doesn't always look the way you think it should, especially 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
I know we keep having to add some years there.
I'm not taking that, I have to
I know. Yeah.
admit.
But I so relate to that too. I talk about that in the book. I always wanted to be a published author. I had that thought when, in my creative writing class, and then I got a bad mark and just immediately said, "Oh, I guess that's not me." And it's all those external voices that we then become our own censor. We say, "Oh, no, you can't do that." And then but it's like, no, we can do, and we don't have to just, one of the things we talk about on the shift is like moving away from that binary. We don't have to, it's not an either or. We can be a writer, and a teacher and a speaker and a healer and all of the things. We don't have to just be one thing. And I think that's the beauty. That's one of the lessons too from this journey.
That is so amazing. You mentioned the shift, so I do want to
Yeah.
have you explain to people what that is before I get into one of my other questions. So tell us
Well,
about the shift.
The Shift is a podcast I do with my co-host Diane McClay. We're all part of the Cornelia Stephanie Media Group, and we're on Transformation Talk Radio with our show, and it's a lot parallel, a lot of parallels to what you're doing here with the Wonder Series, about looking at things from a different perspective, looking beyond what we thought was the truth and uncovering a deeper truth. And a lot of times it's things we haven't even looked at, or new concepts, new ideas, and that's what the beauty of it is. And we do it in real time a lot of the times, like have these conversations, and it's just opening up to a different perspective and helping us in our expansion and connecting in our human experience with one another.
I love it. I love that it's called the shift, because we all do have to shift our perspective in order to take that next step, in order to really look deeper and really focus more on that self-love.
Yes.
So one of the things that I want to ask, how does the message in the book tie to what you do today?
It's really become, now that the book is out, it's really become that message of returning to self, of reconnecting with self, of self-love, loving yourself first, and then that benefits all the other relationships, is really the message. So I've come up with this, what has evolved out of that is the message: love me, love you, love us. And it's about that relationship with ourselves helps us to then nourish a relationship with others, and it just keeps reverberating. And that's how, as collectively, the collective benefits. So, and I'm taking that message. I want to take that and work with corporate, doing workshops and doing team buildings and healing. I would call it corporate healing, and healing in that space where a lot of, we spend a lot of people spend the majority of their days there. Now it's a lot of virtual, but the energy is still there because it's all energy. So it's working with that, helping break down some communication barriers with that, and just really coming back to who we are as humans and bringing back the humanity in our lives and in every area of our lives.
Mm-hmm. I really appreciate the idea of coming back to humanity. Having worked in the corporate world myself, and then for a handful of years, actually 10 years, with a nonprofit, how things are so different. Like you have to almost be a different person, because that's what society expects of you.
Yeah.
But what if you were your real authentic self when you went to work? How much more would you get done? How much more collaboration? How much more cohesiveness?
I'm just getting chills when you're saying this. That's why I'm like moving like that. It is so true. That's exactly the message. We're asked to shave off parts of ourselves when we walk in the door. You're not allowed to have a piercing, or you're not allowed to, you have to dress a certain way, or whatever it is that they say, this isn't going to work here in this environment. But then we're expected to perform at 100% when we're fractions of ourselves. And a lot of times, like, creativity is who we are. It doesn't matter if you're in a creative role. We're all creatives. We're all creating constantly. So when we're shutting those parts of ourselves off, we're shutting off our creative expression. We're shutting off who we are, our core authentic essence. And so that is what I want to work to bring back, like you said, so we would have more cohesiveness, more productivity, more sustainable growth. If that's what the goal is, that is how you do it. It's sustainable because it's real. It's not just we turn it on and off. So that's the message.
Such a powerful message. Now I've got chills. Now I'm excited. So Trish, tell everyone how they can get the book.
Okay.
And I do want to mention to everybody the book. So we're talking with Trish Campbell. On her book, she is titled, is listed here as T.M. Campbell. So just please note that.
Yeah.
How can people find the book, and then how can they find you?
Okay, so people can find the book. It's on Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, BarnesandNoble.com. But if you want a signed copy, you can go to ThisIsTrishCampbell.com and get a signed copy from me there. And all of my work is there, as well as on the KS Media Group app. You'll find all the access points to everything I do there as well.
Fantastic, my friend. Last words of wisdom before we sign off.
Oh, last words of wisdom. Always listen to the quiet voice inside. It knows the way.
And so with that, thank you everyone for listening in. Trish, thank you for being with us today. I look forward to many, many more conversations with you, my dear friend.
Yeah.
Everyone, we are here every Wednesday for Wonder Series Wednesday, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook, on anchor.fm, as well as on Google, and pretty much wherever you find your podcasts. If you're interested in being an amazing expert on the Living Healthy list and the Wonder Series, just give us a jingle here, support@livinghealthylist.com, and we will be in touch. Thank you again, everyone. Trish, again, thank you so much for your insight and your lovely words. And truly, everyone, pick up a copy of Love Me. This book is inspirational. It's beautiful. It's heart-wrenching. The poetry is so meaningful. So this is, if you're looking for a new book, this is the new book that you need to pick up.
Thank you so much, Denise.
Absolutely, my dear friend. We are here every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. So until next week, I leave you with this: healthy living, happy life. Have a great one, everyone.